This is the Military Bottom Line Podcast, episode 56.
Man, 6.5 years gone by just like that. I'm definitely gonna miss it. It's hands down the best experience of my life.
Welcome to the Military Bottom Line Podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. What's going on, guys? Thanks again for tuning in this week. Hey, so I was looking through the analytics for this podcast and have been super encouraged for the growth that the analytics are showing, and really thankful for everybody that's tuning in. But I noticed something in particular, that about 56% of you guys are listening on an iPhone, which means that you have very easy access to go to the podcast app on your iPhone and leave a review. Doesn't have to be a 5-star review, doesn't have to be anything. You can leave an honest review, whatever you think of the show. That's all I care about. I'm just trying to get a couple of reviews in the network so that Apple notices the podcast, so that viewers or listeners notice the podcast, and just try to establish the name a little bit more. So if you guys are one of those people listening on an iPhone, and if you're not listening on an iPhone and you have access to the Apple Podcast app anywhere, I would really appreciate it if you just jumped on there, left a review, an honest review at that. But with that being said, I don't want to take any more of your time. This week on the show, I have Kamil Aldiga. I'm really hoping I didn't butcher his last name there. I didn't confirm with him how to pronounce it. But Camille is an awesome dude. He is just finishing up his Army time. He spent some time in the National Guard, ROTC, and a couple years as a commissioned officer in the Army. And Camille has a really unique story in the sense that he has spent the last 6 months of his Army contract not working in the Army. He has taken advantage of a transition program called CSP, where he was able to basically take the last 6 months off of the Army and go be a realtor. So check out his story, super inspirational. He's now killing it again, another individual with 5 Pillars Realty. And I'm stoked that I keep connecting with these people because they're all killing it. So enjoy his story, learn from his experiences, learn from his wisdom, and definitely stay till the end and figure out how he found out about this opportunity and how you can take advantage of it too. Enjoy. What's going on, Camille? Thanks for joining me today, man.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, I'm stoked. I feel like I'm getting passed around the 5 Pillars group around here. A lot of veterans that are crushing real estate now, and I know you had your time in the Army, commissioned, but I'm looking forward to kind of hearing your story as to how you found yourself in the Army in the first place and why you ultimately got out.
Yeah, so man, this goes back all the way back to senior year of high school, really. I'm from a family with immigrants, right? So both my parents came over from Poland. They never really finished high school, to my understanding, at least not the American version of it. And they were very much like, hey, son, we love you, but you got to kind of figure it out in life at a certain point, right? Which at the time was tough, but looking back on it, it's probably the best thing they've done for me. Well, anyways, fast forward, I'm 18, senior year of high school. And I won't say that I was dumb in high school, but I was definitely lazy, right?
Yeah.
I definitely kept my grades up high enough just so I could play football. And other than that, just school really wasn't for me. But now came the point, right, was I needed to figure out how I'm going to get into a college, how I'm going to pay for it, because me working at this hot dog place at my hometown was not going to foot the bill.
Yeah.
So I went over to my counselor's office. I just heard ROTC just somewhere on the internet or something that they would pay for college. And they kind of dissuaded me in a way, honestly.
Interesting.
It's
what year
Chicago.
is this?
Well, I'm sorry, what was that?
What year was this?
So this was, man, when did I graduate? 2014?
Okay.
2018? I honestly mix up my college and high school graduation dates.
Yeah, I
I
hear
want to
you.
say 2018 would make more sense. No, 2014. Anyways. So yeah, I was a little bit dissuaded from them. They made it seem as if it was kind of not like a low thing to do, but like, hey, really, this should be your last option kind of a deal.
I know.
So fast forward, I kind of put in my applications to college, get accepted to Western Illinois University. No idea how I'm paying for this first semester. I'm just kind of winging it. And I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I might not be here for very long. I start hanging out with the ROTC people there. And not only did I love everything that they're doing, run around kind of playing pretend army at the time, I guess you could say. But the people there were just different. They were very driven and willing to help each other out, which as a freshman, new college, don't really know what you're doing there. It was a great community. And after speaking to some of the cadre, I was just like, you know what? I don't really care what anyone else thinks. Like, I'm joining the Army. So I didn't commission right away into the ROTC program, but I instead went into the National Guard. And that was also kind of on a whim. Just they told me I would get more experience and make more money if I did it that way. And I was like, that's what I'm doing. Went into the recruiter's office, and there was one at that campus. He was like, do you want to shoot stuff or do you want to drive trucks? And I'm like, let's shoot some stuff. So next summer I was at Fort Benning, 11 Bravo Infantry.
No kidding. So you went to college. Did you pick that college because it had a ROTC program, or that you just ultimately went there because it sounded good and you were fortunate enough that it had a ROTC program?
So it's not, I didn't choose it because it had an ROTC program. I chose it because it was, one, it had a really good law enforcement program, which that's what I wanted to do at the time.
Yep.
And two, it's kind of weird looking back on it, but I didn't think incredibly highly of myself, and I didn't think I would qualify for very many other colleges. So I was like, hey, this college might take me. And thankfully they did. And thankfully they did have an ROTC program.
Wow. Okay. So then you ultimately decided to enlist in the National Guard during your 4 years of college.
So between freshman and sophomore year that summer, I went to basic training.
Was there, I mean, if college is already paid for, I mean, they sold you on like making a couple bucks on drill weekends and some experience. I mean, what was like the motive for doing that, even though you already had the ROTC scholarship at that point?
Well, like I said, I was pretty gung-ho about everything.
Okay.
I did speak with the cadre, just kind of what does it all mean if I were to get this contract? And I don't know, just kind of taking the mentality that I had in high school, at least not so much the academic part of things, but football and sports wise. I was like, hey, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it all the way. And I will say that the ROTC program kind of started to spark that kind of like, hey, you can do greater things in this world. So I was either all in or not at all.
Nice. Were most of the people in the cadre also in the National Guard?
No. So most were active duty. We had one recruiter at the time who was a National Guardsman, but everyone else was active duty.
Right on. All right. So you went through school, graduated with like criminal justice or something, or? Okay. And so what did you have like specific things that you were hoping to attain through your military tenure? I mean, what was the main motive, I guess?
So I saw it as a time where I'm figuring myself out still, because I said I wanted to do law enforcement, but that was still kind of like I'm not entirely sure.
Sure. Just had to like fill the blank with something. Yeah.
So ROTC and the Army, like being commissioned and everything after that, I saw that as like additional time where like, hey, I still have a job. I'm still working on the personal development aspect of myself. I'm getting all these experiences and just knowledge from people that I normally wouldn't talk to. And I would hopefully kind of figure myself along the way. And when that time came, I knew I would not be in the Army for the full 20 or for however long. I knew that once I hit that moment, I would want to get out.
Yeah. Nice. Did you have hesitations? I mean, I remember when I signed up, I was like 17 and I was freaking out, but I just sent it. And anyways, turned out all right. But I knew I had a lot of hesitations, a lot of like mental barriers to get over. What was that like for you?
So there was hesitation just as far as, I mean, my family had the idea of, yeah, people sign up for the army and the US just sends people over somewhere to die, right? Like they had this crazy idea about that.
Yeah.
So breaking that to them, I knew it would be heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But I would say that I'm the kind of person where I'm stubborn enough to where if I want to do something, I will. And that's kind of what I did when I enlisted in the Guard and contract with ROTC is I really didn't tell anyone back home because at this point I'm 18 and I'm like, I'm out of the house. I'll make my own decisions.
Nice.
And I actually ended up telling my parents at Thanksgiving dinner that, hey, your son's in the Army now.
Like
went over great.
the first Thanksgiving after signing up or like 2 years later kind of thing?
It was, that fall break.
Okay. Nice. How'd they take it?
Oh, my mom was, she
devastated.
She loves me a lot, which is great. She cares for me and I love her too. But yeah, she was a little panicky.
Yeah. Yeah. Most mothers would be, I feel like. All right. So basically you were able to graduate debt free because of ROTC, I assume, or what did that transaction look like for you? Did they vary much?
I still had loans for my first semester. I had about 14,000, 15,000 in loans because I didn't I actually got a state scholarship, not even an ROTC scholarship.
Oh, interesting.
And they covered my full tuition from that point on, which $15,000 worth of debt is like nothing, especially when right after you go to do military work. And if you focus on paying it off, it's easy.
Yeah. So you're saying state scholarship, not a ROTC scholarship. So was the scholarship via the National Guard? Not, I mean, what do you mean by state scholarship?
So Illinois as a state actually gave out scholarships to ROTC cadets.
Oh, interesting.
To waive either the tuition or the boarding fees. So my obligation was also shorter than a regular ROTC scholarship because ROTC scholarships would be 4 years. Mine was 3.
Wow. Okay. So because you didn't have to take the full college tuition payment from the Army, you were able to have a smaller contract, shorter contract.
Right? Pretty much. Yeah.
Cool. So you commissioned, did you stay as an infantry officer or did you have to switch MOSs because of your commission? So
throughout my time in ROTC, after I came back from basic training, I was part of the SMP program, simultaneous membership, which meant that I do ROTC stuff, but I still do Guard stuff 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of a summer, essentially.
Okay.
So I was part of an infantry unit during that time. Upon commissioning, I wanted to try something different, and air defense caught my eye and decided to be an air defense artillery officer.
Okay, cool. So what is that exactly for the listeners that don't know? I mean, I barely know. What is that MOS and what does a day-to-day look like?
So a lot of people don't know what air defense is in the Army. We are the redheaded stepchild, as many air defensemen will tell you.
Yep.
So basically what our job is, there's HIMAT and there's SHORAD. SHORAD is all about Stinger missiles, jumping out of airplanes with the 82nd, shooting down helicopters, kind of cool stuff like that. It's denying enemy aerial threats.
Cool.
HIMAT aspect of it is primarily ballistic missile defense. So if you have a truck with a bunch of rocket pods kind of pointed to the sky, that's kind of what we were working on. And it kind of blows my mind that a lot of people don't know about it because, again, this is just me tuning up my own branch as well. But everyone's always talking China has like all these soldiers and everything, but modern warfare has changed, right? Like it doesn't matter how many troops you have. All it takes is one well-placed bomb.
Yeah.
So you definitely get to experience kind of a higher level of, I guess, modern warfare, and just the strategy behind all the big wigs kind of using us as chess pieces.
Right on. So what were you doing on a daily basis? Was it like maintenance? Were you actually firing rockets daily as an officer? Was it more administrative? I mean, give us an idea of what that MOS looks like.
So don't let the videos fool you. A Patriot missile looks super cool taking off. You will probably never see it in your career. They're just way too expensive to do.
Yep.
The day-to-day really is just maintenance on the trucks, maintenance on the radar, and maintenance on all of the systems. And then you fit some, we call it warrior time training. You work on your basic warrior tasks once a week. And as an officer, it is very administrative. But you're still out there with the soldiers as a platoon leader.
Gotcha. Is it a little more boring than you anticipated when going in?
Oh, yeah.
A lot more boring.
So going from National Guard infantrymen to where it's like, here's a 249 and go play in the woods somewhere to, hey, sit behind this computer while everyone's working and make sure everything's squared away.
Yeah.
It was bearable, I'll say. When I was a platoon leader, I got moved up to XO, and that was kind of on the edge with me because I was doing primarily administrative, but I could still hang out and talk to soldiers. But I will say when I PCS'd here to North Carolina, Fort Bragg, I got moved to a staff position, and that's all admin stuff, just behind a computer screen every day, and it's not for me.
Yeah, I hear you. All right. So what kind of, where were you stationed and what did your 3 years of active duty look like for you?
So my active duty time started essentially, I think it was about a month right after I commissioned. I actually went to Fort Knox and I served as cadre at the advanced camp. Essentially your junior year as a cadet, you get tested amongst all the other cadets. They run you through missions, you go play in the woods, and they're just evaluating you through that time. So I volunteered to go back, kind of help evaluate, mentor a few of the cadets. I did that for a couple months and then immediately went to basic officers leader course in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. That's where I learned how to work the Patriot weapon system, be an officer, all the basics of being an officer.
Yeah.
Following that, after about a month after that, I flew out to Korea where I was stationed at Kunsan Air Base, left side of Korea, more towards the ocean. And I spent a year over there doing everything from platoon leader to XO to OICs and multiple different things. Spent a year there and I PCS here to Fort Bragg. And that's kind of the point in my head where I was like, I'm going to see how well I like Fort Bragg and the job that I have here, what opportunities the Army still has for me. But if I feel like I'm kind of plateauing in my life, then I could start looking at other options.
Gotcha.
And yeah, that's
a pretty rundown. That's a pretty mobile 3 years. I mean, that's quite a few moves inside of 3 years.
Yeah, it is, but I enjoyed every minute of it. Honestly, I'm not the kind of person that can sit in one place for very long. And I'm a firm believer that moving to a different location with different people is kind of like a life hack. Like you're just forced to experience and take in new information. Yeah,
dude, I like that. That's totally true. Totally true. You're forced to grow and like move outside your comfort zone. You stay at one place for too long, it's dangerous for sure. So so you got to Bragg, and at what point were you like, okay, I think I'm done. Like I'm ready to go. How did that mindset shift?
So it was, I wouldn't say there was one point, but it was a combination of the Army kind of pushing me out and other opportunities pulling me out. It was this kind of mix of both. While I was in Korea, it's the furthest I've ever been from like my typical group of people back home, right? Away from friends, away from family. I was kind of on my own in that sense, which it did suck at times. It was probably the best thing for me. I actually got to sit down without any outside influences and think about like, hey, what do I actually want out of life? Is where I see my career going what I want? Is it going to give me what I want? And I started to realize the answer became kind of more no and no, just to everything that I wanted. So I came to Fort Bragg, and never judge your first duty station. Don't base your whole career off that. So I told myself I'm just going to see what opportunities kind of lay here and if I like anything. And during my time in Korea, I actually began learning about real estate investing. and was determined that once I'm PCS to Fort Bragg, I'm buying a house and house hacking it and just starting that journey. Just to, if I do stay in the Army, at least it will buy me a little more financial freedom in that sense.
Nice. So house hacking has been brought up before, but just briefly explain what that idea is.
Oh yeah. So house hacking, just simplest way to put it, and it's really not complicated at all.
Yeah.
You essentially buy a property. It could be a single regular house. It could be a duplex, triplex, quadplex, whatever you want, really. And you just get a roommate to help cover the mortgage. Like, it's that easy.
Yeah.
And if you get one or two, you're pretty much living for free.
Yeah. So basically you were, getting officer pay, BAH, like they were paying you to live off base anyways. And it's either you go pay rent somewhere, or you buy a house and like fill it with people. So then you're ultimately living for free. And so that was your goal, like day one when moving to Bragg, like that was your focus kind of thing.
Yep. I needed to buy a property, needed a house hack. I knew one day the property would be fully rented out, and I just need to start acquiring properties and making passive income.
Right on. Did you use your VA loan for that house?
Oh, absolutely.
Cool.
Anyone in the military needs to learn about the VA loan like yesterday.
So what was that process for you, like finding that first house? And I mean, what were the barriers for you physically, mentally, financially?
One of the big barriers was I was on the other side of the planet when I started looking,
sure.
Which is, fair enough.
Significant.
And didn't really get to start looking until I got to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which at that point I only had about 2 weeks before I needed to find a place to live. Otherwise I would have to rent. It would just throw the whole plan out of whack. Thankfully I had a couple couches I could crash on.
Yeah. But, so you weren't even open to the idea of starting by renting and then look while you're at Bragg and find a place. You were determined to buy a place to move into day one. Basically from Korea. That was the goal. Yeah.
Definitely the person, ask my mother. I will jump out of a plane and build a parachute on the way down kind of idea.
Nice. Okay. So what'd you buy?
Simple single family house, 3-bed, 2.5 bath, 10 minutes from base, nothing crazy about it. And then I just reached out to all of my military friends in the area, just told them all, hey, I need a roommate. Whoever wants to or knows someone that wants to, let me know.
Cool.
And a couple weeks later I had a roommate.
Did having that gaining that house hacking experience solidify your desire to get out of the Army, or how is that developing as you consider what's next and how you're going to move forward?
So I got the one house hack and I was still on the edge of, do I want to stay in the Army, continue investing on the side, or do I just want to get out and try and find something new to do? And again, with the whole, either I'm doing everything, either I'm doing it or I'm not, right? Just 100% or no go. I was fortunate enough that Five Pillars was actually, Shelby Osborne from Five Pillars was my agent. And after I closed on the house, they wanted to hang out with me, which I'm new to the area. I'm whatever, I'll be friends with a realtor. It's cool. But they took me to a Korean dinner, and we still talk about it to this day. But they were asking me just very low key, hey, how's the Army going? And I told them the truth. I'm it's really losing its shine. I'm starting to think about doing something else. And Shelby right away was yeah, you should be a real estate agent. Just be a real estate agent, work on real estate full time, build up your portfolio, and make your dreams happen. I sat there for maybe a minute or two, and I'm yeah, 100% or not at all. I'm yeah, I'm doing it.
No kidding. Did you even really know much about being a real estate agent at the time?
Oh, nothing at all.
Nothing. You're just wait, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, I can do that. Forget the Army. Let's do it.
Yep. Jump, building the parachute on the way down. I'll figure it out.
Good for you, man. So at that point, how much longer do you have in the Army when you decided okay, I'm going to get out and become a real estate agent?
I think I had, maybe 8 months at the time.
8 months? Okay.
8-9 months, something like that. And the CSP program, I don't know if anyone's heard about it, or have you heard about it? Essentially 6 months before you get out of the Army, you can go on an internship. And that was my game plan. I'm going to finish out my military career strong, obviously still at work, doing what I need to do, making the place better and just doing my duty, really.
Unreal. So you spent the last 6 months of your contract basically interning with them, gaining experience. Did you get your realtor license in that time window?
Yeah. So things went way fast.
All right.
I thought I was going to intern for 6 months, get my real estate license at some point, and then like have this kind of like start point of like, hey, you're an agent now. Did not really work out like that. Was doing my internship, got my real estate license, and then just one day I woke up and I'm like a full-blown agent now, which was fine. I mean, it all worked out. I spent months in Korea, practically the whole year, learning about real estate investing strategies, and they put me in a investor specialist spot. But yeah, it just kind of happened ASAP. The best part about it was I'm an independent contractor, so I'm still technically interning. I'm not breaking any rules, and I'm making 2 paychecks at once while working on my real estate portfolio.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay. So basically, what would you call it? The C what P? What was the program called? CSP. So essentially, you're interning with 5 pillars for the last 6 months of your contract, still getting paid full Army paychecks, but you don't put on a uniform for those last 6 months.
Correct. Your place of duty is where you're interning at.
Unbelievable. So, I mean, I was going to ask, like, what did you do to prepare for the transition? But like, they just paid you to like prepare for the transition. You just started a new job, essentially.
Pretty much.
Wow. Okay. So, did you, a lot of people struggle with the transition. And so do you feel like because you used that 6 months to kind of like it was a seamless transition, like you just kind of woke up, you're out of the Army, you already have your new career, you're making money, everything's great? I mean, like what was the transition like for you? Was it difficult? I mean, what kind of wisdom?
So I will, and this is again my personal experience, right? Going the Army is going to be different. It was a little difficult just through my experiences when I wanted to go on that internship, which there's some backlash against an officer trying to get out of an Army, which again, I don't necessarily blame them. I just got to the unit. I'm sure they were planning on me being there for a while and doing things, but I just had a change of heart, and now I'm leaving pretty much ASAP, trying to get out. And it doesn't help that the CSP isn't actually very well known for soldiers or commanders. And when they hear about it, they think you're just trying to, go AWOL for 6 months. But once that was all done and settled, I mean, transitioning wasn't too bad. I was thankful for the 6 months to have that steady paycheck coming in and knowing that, hey, if I like really suck at this, like I can still eat. Right. And I have 6 months to figure out and get good at it. And yeah, I will say, because I'm actually officially out of the Army like this Saturday. And
oh, wow. So wait, you just finished the program, the internship?
Yep.
No kidding. All right. That's super cool that you're actually like living this right now. Wow. Yeah. Congratulations.
Appreciate that. But yeah, I will say actually earlier today, funny that we're talking about it. I was going to turn in my stuff at CIF, getting everything done and set. Soldier saluted me on the way out. He was like a brand new private, like 18 years old, reminded me a lot of myself. I know it sounds super cheesy, but at that point I was like, man, 6.5 years like gone by just like that. Like I'm definitely going to miss it. It's hands down the best experience of my life, but
interesting. Well, I mean, yeah, I know a lot of people, like I stayed in the reserves for a bit. I mean, you're talking about how like, if you're going to do it, you just 100% do it. And so like to you, the reserves is like, what's the point, kind of thing. I mean, what's the thought process there? Do you, like, if you had a great experience, is there any desire to keep your foot in the door? I mean, how does that go?
So there's definitely a desire to stay in and, like you're saying, keep my foot in the door. It's just, it's the 100% thing. I don't think I could 100% focus on my real estate portfolio and being an agent while also working on the side as a reservist. And I did hear, and again, word of mouth everywhere you go is different, but I've had a lot of friends that go reserve and they say it's rather difficult, at least on the officer side, just because you're working your regular 9 to 5, but then it's like a second 9 to 5 throughout the month, getting everything ready for the drill. Don't quote me on this, but them telling me that was enough for me to be like, I can't be halfway. Yeah. And I really had to focus on my North Star, we'll call it, right? Like,
Yeah.
what do I actually want out of life and what's going to get me there?
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I was talking to somebody else like last week, and they were talking about like, thinking they want to get out, but being like the military has this like Stockholm syndrome, like it's super
Yeah.
difficult to make that jump. It's like, you love it or hate it, you still feel like you need it. You like they give you all this confidence and almost like give you self-doubt at the same time. So
Yep.
that,
And yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, if you just listen, right? So I'm also a firm believer that you're the product of the people you hang around with most, right?
yeah.
And if you listen to soldiers kind of talk to each other, like they'll talk about how scary the outside is. And then unfortunately, even leaders talk about that too. And whether like they joke or not, in the back of their mind, I'm sure that seed is there. That when they have this idea of like getting out, they see this huge castle wall they have to get over. Like, hey, I have to figure everything out.
Yeah.
And I think the Army does a disservice too by pretty much taking care of 90% of soldiers' worries, right? Like, we don't really have to care about healthcare, our next paycheck. We just show up to work, do the right thing in the right uniform, and go home.
Yeah.
But now you got to figure everything out.
Yeah. It's like active duty military life is just so simple.
So easy.
It's a beautiful thing, but it's also like, if you ever have aspirations on the outside, like you have to make sure that you don't let that get too comfortable. It's it can be pretty damaging. When you went to the command in Fort Bragg and you have 8 months left, you're like, they're expecting things from you, and you're saying like, yeah, I'm getting out. Did you talked about backlash a little bit, but were your higher ups and people like trying to talk you out of it? I mean, what was that backlash like? I mean, they're telling you have fun down by the river in your van kind of thing, or I know that's one that a lot of the enlisted get, but what was that backlash like, and how did you overcome that?
So I wouldn't say it was direct as in like, hey, this is a bad idea. So if I'm talking at least a bunch of beliefs, like I don't think anyone really wants anything poor for anyone, right?
Sure.
Like everyone wants the best. And I do think my command wanted the best, but again, I'm a random lieutenant that just showed up to the unit, haven't done anything yet. I'm talking about this random program that they've never heard of. Yeah. And again, like I'm the guy 100%, I'm gonna do it or not. And I'm an incredibly stubborn human being. And I'm sure the way I was coming off was very like, hey, like I'm doing this. Like I will fight for it.
Yeah.
So the backlash kind of came more so, I'm sure I came off entitled, and I was told that just straight up by my command, like, you're not like owed this at all. It's kind of like based on us, which I agreed 100% that I wasn't, but I also had a chip on my shoulder, and I still do with the Army. Just infantry background. And I'm sure a lot of people going in the Army or that are in the Army, like we want to go to the cool schools. You know what I mean? Like air assault, airborne, sapper, ranger. And I've been fighting to get into a ranger slot since I could remember. I've been asking everyone about it. Unfortunately, it just doesn't make sense for my branch, which big picture, like I get it, but I was just denied a lot of opportunities. And in my mind, again, 100% or not at all, like I'm doing this and I don't care what my reputation really looks like after this. Like I want to do this.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, it's like, if you've painted a clear picture of like what you want out of life, and you figure out that the Army's not going to give it to you, then, that makes sense. And I think that's something important for everybody in the military to do it, earlier on, the better. It's like, think about like, okay, what do I actually want? And how can I start working towards that? Otherwise, you're just kind of like, you're not going to really think, and you're just going to like re-enlist or like do whatever you're told to next, which is great, like do your job and stuff. But, life will pass by pretty quick if you're not thinking about like, what do I actually want? So yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
I know in the buildup, prefacing the conversation, you mentioned 9 units in your first year. Is that a goal, or have you already accomplished that?
So my goal the first year was actually get 2 units. Yeah.
Okay.
I ended up getting 9, which super stoked about.
So I'm just trying to figure out the timeline, because you're saying a year, but you've been in this program for 6 months. So like you haven't even reached 1 year yet, have you? from starting the process?
Actually, this May, yes.
This May. Okay. All right. 9 units. So this isn't a real estate podcast by any means, but I keep talking to real estate people. I'm interested in real estate. So, we'll kind of tie it all together. What were those 9 units, and how, like, I'm curious from my own understanding, like, how did you fund those different purchases?
So the funding aspect really started, I would say, as I was getting out of college. My last year of college, I had to go on an internship for law enforcement. So I just rode around with a police officer for a semester. And the dude he would always listen to Dave Ramsey. Are you familiar with him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So super pay off all debt. Debt is evil. Like, super money financial. And like, just by riding with him, I was like, you know what? I need to figure out my life. So I made it a mission that I'm going to pay off my college loans and be debt free as soon as possible, which I accomplished like my first or second month into Korea. But at that point, I'm like, okay, like now what? like I don't know what to do with my money now. So I started a fund, and I literally called it my future fund in my like little budgeting app.
When you say a fund, like just a savings account.
Pretty much. At some point, like I'm going to keep saving and living frugal. And at some point, I'm going to find a good use for this money. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll figure it out.
Nice.
So I just kept hoarding cash in there. And I learned about real estate from my warrant officer over in Korea. And as time kind of progressed, I was more and more determined of, hey, I'm going to use this money to start real estate investing. Fast forward to here. Purchased a house with a VA loan. So I was like, no money down. I paid for closing costs. And I ran into 2 other guys who, one was also doing the CSP program. They're also 5 Pillars agents. The other guy, Mark Horton, just spoke to him, I'm pretty sure. And decided to start an LLC with those guys and like, let's just buy a bunch of properties. And we did.
Cool. So you partnered with them. So, okay. So you're a partial owner of 9 units essentially? Or?
Yes. Yeah. I own 2 units outright by myself. Everything else I'm partnered with.
Nice. Do you have a number that you're like at 50 units? I'm good. Like, let me just go sip Mai Tais on a beach kind of thing? Or like, I mean, what's the goal now?
So everyone's always talking about how many units are you trying to get to? I could care less. I actually want the least amount of units as possible. For me, it's more about the cash flow because, again, since being in the military, I'm looking for more freedom. And once I hit that cash flow goal, I'll be good to go. So right now, generally, the plan is to get 10 units outright just for me, right? Nice. Just the ones that I own, whatever I have extra with partners is cool additional income. But once I get to those 10 properties, I want to start doing Dave Ramsey's method, right? Debt snowball. I'll essentially start with the smallest mortgage and throw all my funds at it until that's paid off and then move on to the next.
Cool.
And at some point, properties will be paid off. I don't have to worry about a mortgage, just cash flow coming in.
Yeah. That's fine. I don't know if I've met any, investors that actually like want to pay off all their properties, because it's like, oh, taxes this, taxes that, whatever. Like, so I can appreciate that because I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, it's cool to have properties and all, but I don't really love having, millions of dollars worth of debt kind of thing. That's uncomfortable for me. So it's interesting to see that side of it.
Yeah, it's definitely different, but I think Mike Gillespie told me one time, which I think was on this podcast too. Another 5 pillar. Here we go.
Oh yeah.
I think he told me one time, like, there's really no right answer to real estate. Real estate is just the vehicle of which you go to reach your destinations.
Yeah.
So if I want to live financially free, just independent, sit on a beach drinking Mai Tais, and I want as little headache as possible, like, why would I have 100 houses where roofs are going bad, tenants are being bad? Like, just get 10 simple ones, pay them off. You're good to go.
Yeah. 100%. What intangibles do you think you took away from the Army that has made you, successful in this transition and real estate as you're moving forward? Like, what do you like, man, I'm glad I joined the Army. Like, this is super helpful and has made a difference.
So I'm a pretty extroverted individual. I'm sure you could kind of tell just by me going off.
Yeah.
But being put into leadership positions in the Army really taught me to just shut my own mouth sometimes and listen. And I have to remind myself of that every day. But if you listen, everyone will teach you something, whether it's how to do something right or how not to do something. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So what does that mean in connection with real estate? So you just kind of like, you just showed up to 5 pillars, you didn't talk, and you start listening to everybody kind of thing. And
yeah,
boom, now you're a pro basically.
There's definitely, I think when you shut your mouth, you're able to intake information a little bit more, right? Like I knew going into the 5 pillars team, like, hey, these guys are all stars. And quite frankly, like I know my real estate stuff. I've been studying for about a year now, but these guys have been actually implementing their knowledge and I need to just absorb as much as I can. And that was the plan. And it worked out great. And even just being an agent, if you like really listen, right? Because like we listen to respond, we don't necessarily listen to understand. So when talking with clients and they're talking with issues they're running into or what they're looking for, like sure, they could tell you they're looking for a certain aspect of a property or something, but what they're really looking for is somewhere where we'll say there's a safe place for the kid to play, right? Like what's the actual thing they're looking for?
Interesting. Okay. Like a fenced in backyard or like a dead end street kind of thing. I mean,
it's kind of hard for me to come up with something off the top of my mind, but it happens a lot with investors, I'll say, because everyone's always looking for this brick building, we'll say, with just like $200 a month cash flow and all that. And we as 5 pillars agents, and me especially, I just kind of like bring everyone back and being like, hey, you're looking for, we'll say like $200 a door. I think what you really need to focus on is just the return on investment, right? Because you can spend all your money trying to get this $200 return on a property, but if the return on investment's like 1.2%, like it's not worth it. You know what I mean? Like just because the property isn't cash flowing crazy right off the bat, your return on investment could still be outstanding.
Yeah, that's a good point. Interesting. So to go back to like Army, so I'll talk about real estate with you another time. To go back to Army stuff. So the internship program during transition, talk a little bit about that and what are the limitations? Like if there is a soldier looking to, they're transitioning out in the next year and they're trying to figure out like what to do, how do they find a business or an internship that they, might be interested in having a career with, and actually like moving forward with that program? How do they get their command on board? When nobody knows it exists and you try to convince your command, like, hey, let me go not work for 6 months. Explain that a little bit. And how do you navigate that situation?
Yeah. So I would definitely say be proactive. Begin kind of having this conversation in your head of like, what am I at a minimum, at least trying to explore if I would like to do or not. And just to touch on that point, if you know you want to get out of the army, but you don't necessarily know what you want to do, the next step doesn't have to be your final one, right? Like at least get that job, that financial stability, that like additional experience that'll help propel you to the next step. So at least identify at a minimum that, and then see what kind of internship opportunities they have. And I know CSP actually partners with a lot of companies for this program. And I think Microsoft might be one of them. I think I just had a buddy go on to the CSP program to do that. So do your research. And if you go to your soldier support center and go talk about the CSP, they will give you a packet that kind of explains everything. And my recommendation for anyone bringing this up to their commander is be prepared to answer all the questions because they will have everything. It's not working for 6 months does not sound good to your commander.
Yeah. You got to pitch it differently than that. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, every program, whether it be a veteran program or like an active duty program, if there is a legitimate program, there's going to be probably a civilian that knows everything there is to know about it. So it's just a matter of like digging around until you find them, and then they're an endless resource to like accomplish whatever your goal is within that program. So Yeah, just because like, you know, if one dude in your command, like your sergeant, your first sergeant doesn't know about the opportunity, that doesn't mean anything. You know, like if you've heard about it, keep searching until there's like a hard, you know,
Yeah.
hard final, whatever that answer is.
There's a lot of rumors in the Army. You got to make sure what you're hearing is true.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, because if it weren't for the program for you, I mean, like, do you feel like you would have stayed in? I mean, had you not had this 6-month opportunity, I mean, like, you have any guesses as to what would have happened?
So the 6-month CSP program was really just a great bonus, but I was offered to be a real estate agent prior to me even knowing about that program. And in my head, I was like, real estate, 100%, it's going to get me to where I want to go. So I'm doing it or not. And then it was more of like an after the fact of like, hey, be an intern, like 6 months, like you can start early on your goals.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Awesome, man. Well, I like to ask a couple of the same closing questions. Well, first of all, you mentioned you had a story to share to kind of give a glimpse into your Army life.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, it goes a lot with my like listen to understand, not listen to just hear what they're saying. Everyone has something to teach you. So this is just random story that I think about a lot, actually. When I was cadre at this summer camp, I was watching this platoon of cadets, and they've been out in the woods now for like 3 days, or covered in poison ivy, bug bites, haven't showered, haven't really slept. And I like these kind of scenarios because I like to observe people and just kind of see how they react.
Yeah.
And just, there wasn't really one instance, but throughout the time, right, there was this one squad where complained about everything, right? Like this might have been living hell for them. This is the worst time of their lives. And they will let you know, right? They will let everyone know how much they hate it. My favorite people, though, are the ones, this group of guys, and they call themselves the shit boys because they always got the shittiest details of the platoon. They always had to do the worst thing, go the farthest, but they were so fired up about it. They would like wear it like a badge of honor on them. And I would walk up to them one time and ask them like, yo, why do you keep calling yourselves that? And they looked at me like I was dumb. Like, don't ever ask that again. Like, this is just who we are. And they actually did outstanding during that training time. And it was just kind of, lesson learned and just observing people make the most out of what you got. Right. Even though something looks horrible, be the one standing above everyone else, having a great time, and people will notice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Attitude is, one, it's contagious, and it's also going to determine how you feel about everything, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that's awesome. What do you feel like, your favorite opportunity within the Army was?
Ooh, CSP program, does that count?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I can understand why.
Yeah, it's honestly a great program. Even if you're not trying to pursue real estate, get financially independent and all that jazz, just even that 6 months safety net of I'm going out here to learn about this job, get skills, and likely get a job offer from this company. And like that 6 month transition time, like the Army did something right there. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it's not just Army. I'm pretty sure it's every branch there is.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure.
Fairly confident that's true. Skill Bridge, CSP. I'm pretty confident that's true.
Everyone needs to utilize it if they're trying to get out.
Yeah. Yeah. What about your favorite and least favorite place the Army has sent you?
Favorite? I would say both would be Korea.
Okay.
Korea was rough. I won't lie. The op tempo there, just the amount of missions and work we have to do, is just constant. You are not allowed to fall behind. But I would say it was my favorite because it did give me that time away from everyone to really figure out what I wanted to do, next steps in life, and just generally what I wanted. Right
on. Is the Army something that you would recommend?
Oh, yeah. 100%. I know I've talked about like maybe I've been a little angry with the Army at times, and I would say it's like every other job, right? Like even people who love their jobs, I'm sure there's some days they go in and they're like, yo, what am I doing here? But just the amount of experience and development you get from the Army is unmatched. Like you will go into the Army come back after a year to your hometown and you will look at your friends being like, why are these people so weird? You know what I mean?
Well, they're probably thinking the same thing about you, but it's all relative. Yeah. Right on.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story. Any closing wisdom or anything you want to share?
Just kind of have fun in life. Like if you're trying to figure out what you're really wanting to do, like what's fun to you? Because if it's fun, you'll just do it. And that goes with the Army and the real estate thing. Like both things were absolutely fun to me.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then just knowing when it's not fun anymore and moving on.
Exactly.
Awesome, man. Well, where can people find more about you if they want to connect, or if they need a realtor in the Fort Bragg area?
Oh, yes. So if you just go on Instagram and look up Camille and real estate, just give me a follow, shoot me a message. And I don't only talk about real estate stuff, do a bunch of other stuff. So just shoot me a message, say hi. Love to talk.
Cool. Awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode with Camille. He's a motivator. He's killing it. And I really admire his 100% that he puts into whatever he's doing. So when he makes that determination, he sends it and he goes all in on that. And it's something that like I really appreciate. And it's something that I want to do more than I do. I like kind of having my crap all over the place and trying to work on multiple things at once. But he takes a different approach and focuses 100% on one thing, and that's working out really well for him. So I hope you guys were able to enjoy that episode. I hope you got something of value out of it. If you did, don't forget to leave that review on Apple Podcasts if you're one of those people listening on iPhone. With that said, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.